So what have we got? We've got 5 mitzvahs on Leil Seder. 5 mitzvot, right? 2 of them are deoraises, 2 of them come from the Torah, and what are they? That is Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. There's a mitzvah to tell over the story of Yitzias Mitzrayim and Achilas Matzah. Those are the 2 mitzvahs that come from the Torah. And then we've got 3 rabbinical mitzvahs. One of them is the 4 cups of wine that need to be drunk, although that needs a little bit of a clarification because this year, because the first cup of wine is Kiddush for Friday night as well, so it's actually got a din of being a Torah obligation. I don't want to confuse anybody too much, but whatever. It's a little bit different this year. So the first rabbinical mitzvah is the 4 cups of wine. The second one is eating the maror, and the third one is Hallel. Right, so what we're going to do, Mitzvah Hashem, over the next couple of days is we're going to look at the amounts that need to be eaten, what needs to be eaten, what inside of how much time they need to be eaten, just to be able to get our mitzvahs down pat. But before we go any further, there is something which I think is rather important over here. The first dioraisa, the first Torah obligation of Seder night is to tell over the story of Yitzias Mitzrayim, what's called Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. Sipur comes from the word Sefer, L'saper, to tell, to relate, right? And it's kind of an important thing, it really is, because many people, they use Seder night as an opportunity, and again, I'm not judging, I'm not saying anything, I just want you to understand as well. They use it as an opportunity to have incredibly complicated and complex debates amongst themselves about, various, language that's used or different grammatical issues that come up with inside of the story, or, halachic dimensions that are found inside of the Gemara in Pesachim. And all of that, of course, is very, very applicable and very apt to do on Pesach, but it's not really what we're supposed to be doing on Seder night. On Seder night, really, we're just supposed to be telling the story of Yitzias Mitzrayim. For those of us that have children, so it should be as exciting as possible. It should be as animated as possible. Just in order to keep the kids keep them going, they've got to be kept in a state of stimulation in order to enjoy the Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. That's why, Baruch Hashem, I've got married children and I've got younger children and I've got grandchildren, and it's a little bit of a juggling act, to tell over the story of Yitzias Mitzrayim in a way that's going to cover everybody's, various levels and needs, right? But it's something which really does need to be done. It really does. And, we spoke the other day, we spoke about visual aids, but one of the things that we use in order to keep the kids happy and keep them busy is that I have a great big bowl and it gets filled up with chocolates, right? Individually wrapped chocolates. And whenever anybody says anything, or comes up with a question or comes up with an answer or says something which is neat, which is nice, they get a chocolate. And it is astonishing. Right? My wife, when she lays a table, so she puts down little bags for people they can store their chocolates in, because the chocolates are not all of them are powder, some of them are dairy, right? And it becomes like a little bit of a competition to see who's got more chocolates than anybody else, and it's extraordinary the way that it works. All the way from my mother-in-law comes for Pesach. All the way from, my mother-in-law, all the way down to the youngest of the children the youngest of the grandchildren who are old enough to be able to understand what's going on. Everybody is involved, right? Everybody's got something to say. Everybody wants to be a part of what's going on. And it works. It really works. It's fantastic. The Mishnah Berurah says that you should give out nuts. And his day, nuts were the equivalent of today's chocolates. When I look around my Seder table, there are enough nuts there to begin with. So we make do with chocolate, but it's like again, are you bribing the kids to be involved? Are you bribing them to stick around and to try to enjoy themselves? Yes, you are, but it's great. There's nothing wrong with bribery when it's being done for the right reasons, really. And it's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun. And you can see, like, the little ones, they're sort of like struggling to find things once they've been through whatever they've learned in guns. So they're struggling to find things to say in order to be able to get more, to get more chocolate. And so they come out with the bizarrest things, but it's fine, it's great, it's good, it really is good. So just before we get going, this idea of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, that's why really it's a very important concept, it really is. That the idea of telling over the story, not the idea of getting involved in nitpicking debates about various details inside of something, but to tell the story as it unfolds. And it's a whatever. I mean, it's something that needs to be thought about, certainly when you've got different age groups, so it's something that needs to be worked out, So that's what we're doing, that's what we're setting out to do on Leil Seder. And interestingly enough, anyone who's familiar with the Manishtana, right, the asking the 4 questions, you'll see that we do all kinds of things in order to get the kids to ask. Right, so the 4 cups of wine, kids should ask, and the dipping and everything that we're doing, right, and only eating matzah, and it's all there that the kids should be stimulated, the kids should be having fun. Every year my wife goes out and buys, there are 10 plague kits, which they're pretty cute actually. They come with like plastic frogs and they come with bits and pieces for each one, and it's like it's fun. The kids they get going. If the kids are having a good time, then it means that we're having a good time as well. That's really what it comes down to. A successful Seder is a Seder where everybody's enjoyed themselves and everybody's had a lot of fun. And, the more you do in order to make it fun, the better it's going to be for them.
If you're all a group of adults, what's the mitzvah? Is the mitzvah to tell to the Haggadah,
Yeah.
Is the mitzvah to tell or the mitzvah to educate whoever's
The mitzvah is regardless of who's sitting there, is Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, to tell over the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And I heard from 2 extremely great rabbis, both of them so independently of each other, that they what they do in their Seder night, what they do, even when they've got lots of adults over there, they tell over the story, and they gather together midrashic texts that are that are thought provoking, and they throw them in, and that's what they do. No, they don't get involved in philosophical, theological discussions about things, but they tell over the story. And the Rambam, of course, rules, the very famous Rambam, who rules that if there's only 2 people and they're both Talmidei Chachamim, one of them's got to ask the questions, the other one's got to answer, and that's Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's time to tell the story. Yeah.
What if it's just you by the Seder night? Do you ask the questions?
Yeah, you need to ask the questions as well. Interestingly enough, out loud. Yeah, Chazal say that answers without questions are as incomplete as questions without answers. And that means that even, there's an obligation to tell over the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, but if you don't, the 4 questions, what are they doing? They're laying down the framework with inside you're going to be able to tell the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, right, of the Exodus from Egypt. So even if you're by yourself, you should do that, and it's great, really. It's a beautiful thing to do. It really is. Just sort of bring us back to basics and to let us remember exactly why it is that we're going through the whole commemoration. It's interesting that Seder night is not just a commemoration of something that took place 3,300 years ago, but it's Seder night has the power within it, that koyach within it, for us to be able to tap into what's called the Chodesh HaGeula, the month of redemption. And it's something, it's something that we really need to be holding on to it tight. I saw a beautiful vort, the egg, the boiled egg, the roasted egg that sits on the Seder plate, and then there's an egg that's eaten by everybody. So a simple pshat is that the egg is representing the Korban Chagiga, which was the festive Korban, the festive offering that was brought to the temple. There were 2 offerings that were brought on Pesach night. One was the Pesach offering, and one was the regular Korban Chagiga, which was just a festive offering that was brought every time there was a festival. You had to bring one, and instead of using a piece of meat, which is what we do for the Korban Pesach, we use an egg. Why an egg? So one reason that's brought down for using an egg is because Seder night and Tisha B'Av night, which is the night of the destruction of the 2 temples, are always on the same night. Yeah. So this year, Seder night is going to be on it's going to be on Friday night, on Shabbos night. So Tisha B'Av, instead of being on Friday night, because we don't fast on Shabbos, it's going to be pushed off to Motzei Shabbos, but it's always the same day, and eggs are a sign of mourning. Any round food is a sign of mourning, right? The idea Rashi explains when he talks about the lentils that were,
Even a bagel?
Even a bagel. Even a bagel, right? There's a custom, there's a halacha that when somebody begins to sit shiva, Lo Aleinu, we should know about these things, that they're given a meal. The first thing that they're given is a meal by somebody else. They shouldn't prepare it for themselves, and normally it's food made up of something round, so a bagel and eggs. That famous lentil dish that Yaakov was busy cooking up to give to Yitzchak was because Abraham had just died and he was sitting shiva. Lentils are little round things. Rashi explains that we have them for two reasons. First of all, there's no opening, so it's like the ovel, the mourner is sitting without the ability to be able to express himself properly. And aside from that, it's the circle of life, right? And the eggs are there in order to commemorate that idea of the circle and the cycle of life. However, Rabbi Eiger, who was actually the grandson of one of the greatest rabbis who lived in the previous generations, the grandson of Rabbi Akiva Eiger, and if anybody here is, interested in a little bit of historical information, Rabbi Eiger was actually a chassid, which was completely and absolutely unexpected, because Rabbi Akiva Eiger, his grandfather, was vehemently against Chassidut. Him, together with the Vilna Gaon, they were the two that were the stalwarts against Chassidut, and yet his grandson became a Chassid. What took place in one generation, already 2 generations later, Chassidut was already mainstream, and it's considered to be a perfectly acceptable approach to Avodat Hashem. Rabbi Eiger offers the most incredible idea. He says like this: the Shamayim, the heavens, open up from Pesach night, from Leil Seder, all the way through until Shavuot. The heavens are open, waiting for us to be able to tap into HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence. Sfira Sa'omer, the whole of the Sfira Sa'omer, he says they're there, and that's again the idea of counting and the idea of reaching up step by step, and the knowledge, again in Kabbalistic terms, the knowledge that the gates are open, wide open, which means nothing's stopping you from making that connection. And he says everything is dependent upon what? It's dependent upon us, which means that we can go into Leil Seder and come out of Leil Seder completely untouched, and Chalila, nothing has happened to us. We haven't grown, we haven't moved. Or a person can go into Leil Seder and can come out like something else altogether. And he says that's symbolized by the egg. And an egg, you've got no idea whether an egg is going to be fertilized. It's not going to be fertilized, right? You've got this egg, and Chalila, a person could start off Leil Seder in egg. What's the egg-like form? Egg means what? Potential, right? A person is pure potential at the beginning of the Seder, and if he doesn't connect to the Seder properly, so he's going to end up at the end of the Seder, he's going to be like a hard-boiled egg. That's what he's managed to do to himself. And the other alternative is that he's going to turn into something else altogether. He's going to turn into something, a rooster, somebody who's able to raise himself up, waken himself up, right?
Exactly.
Why don't we say Tachnan during Nisan?
Nisan, the month of Geula, the month of redemption, right? Tachnan is all about the concept of destruction, right? We mourn the destruction of the temple.
When is it? I'm sorry.
Tachnan is recited in the mornings.
When is the destruction of the temple?
The destruction of the temple took place in the summer, on the 9th of Av.
What month is that?
Av.
Well,
Av. Right, we're moving into Nisan now. So in a few months' time, unfortunately, we're going to get to Av. Unless you get going and do some davening, right, and bring the Mashiach, then we're going to have to go through Tisha B'Av again. But if you have no pressure, right? But if you daven properly, then the Mashiach will come, and in Mitzvot Hashem, Tisha B'Av is going to turn into a Yom Tov. There'll be lots of food, and maybe not yogurt, but there'll be other things.
It's okay, I like fleischigs.
Yeah, good, Baruch Hashem. Here, so you got something to daven for, right? Korban Pesach is always meat. The Korban Chagiga is represented by the egg, but Lamaisa in the temple, it was more meat. There was a lot of Seder night was a carnivore fest. Lots of meat was being eaten. Pesach, interestingly enough, Pesach night is one of the few times where even people that didn't normally eat meat, right, they were obligated during temple times to eat the Korban Pesach, and they would have to eat a kazayas worth of meat. So it's interesting. I once had a Talmud who was he was a vegetarian. Um, shouldn't happen to anybody, but whatever. He was a vegetarian, and he was a vegetarian actually for humane reasons. He felt that it was terrible the way that animals were treated. And the truth of the matter is, very often it's true, unfortunately. But when he started learning about the more mystical dimensions of the idea of eating meat and the idea of learning how to control, we're at the top of the pyramid that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, and that we've got to learn how to control and to look after those that are below us. So he decided that he was going to start eating meat on Yom Tov. That was his right. So he didn't eat meat the rest of the year. He didn't eat meat, but on Yom Tov he would eat meat, not just on Pesach, but on Sukkot and Shavuot as well. And that was his, his way of connecting together with what it was that he was learning. But I remember him the first time that he heard that on Pesach everybody had to eat some of the korban Pesach. I remember being horrified. It was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What about people that don't want to eat meat? What about them? So I guess in temple times the idea of eating meat was something which wasn't so as abhorrent as it is nowadays for some people.
They treated animals better back then, though.
I imagine so. I mean, like everything, it's all turned into this mass production, and it's all rather disturbing, actually, what's going on. I do think that as Jews, I think we should be concerned about the way that animals are being treated, and I think that we should be careful to try to buy things coming from places where perhaps animals are treated better than they are in other places. But although I have a brother who's a farmer, and he says that a lot of this stuff that you read about as being free range, and he says it's not really the way that it sounds exactly. If you imagine some chicken that's living in freedom and it just happens to end up on your dinner plate, it's not quite like that. It really isn't.
So when you're seeking after badats, you're not only looking for something that's kasher properly. You're looking for something that's been an animal that's been dealt with properly.
I think personally, I think that there really should be two dimensions to this. There is a dimension of the kashrut, right, which means that if I'm looking for something which is mahadrin, something which is on a higher kashrut level, right, and all the various details, every single one has been taken care of. That's one thing, right? But I do also think that we should be looking for food that's coming from meat that's coming from places where animals are being treated better than just battery farms where they're all squeezed in. It's really quite awful.
To emanate from the Chumash when you read about all the mitzvot, the animals and things like that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Has something behind it, even if it
For
doesn't.
sure, absolutely. I mean, first of all, Noach was told that he has to look after all the animals when he's in the ark. On top of that, we've got mitzvahs that are applicable up to and including today. Somebody who owns animals needs to feed his animals before he feeds himself. That's a halacha, right? It's as simple as that, right? There's a concept called tsar lebali chayim, right? Not causing anguish to animals. Now again, not to be misunderstood, it doesn't mean that we can't eat animals. We can, but we've got to be careful how we treat them. That's all.
Can we benefit from Tsar Bali Chaim?
It's an interesting question. Can you benefit? I mean, the truth of the matter is we probably all do, right? Which means that Tzala Bali Chaim means that I don't know what goes on when you like with the shoe. We wear leather shoes, leather belts, right? I don't know what's going on before it gets into the shop as a pair of shoes. What's happened to this animal? I don't know. So is it permissible to benefit from Tzala Bali Chaim? Yes, it is. Is it correct to? I don't know. That's a debatable point.
So you're getting leather. It's not. Well, you don't eat it, but it's not kosher.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's
People
okay.
Who don't shochet animals properly.
Again, there's no
needs to come from.
well, so there's no obligation. There's no obligation to have shoes or belts that are made out of leather from animals that have been slaughtered. That's not a necessity. Right, and that's why it's okay to wear, alligator alligator belts and you know, ostrich shoes, and I've got no idea, I'm running out of exotic animals, but you know, you get the idea.
Yes.
Right? Which means like this: so you are supposed to be eating meat on Leil Seder. Somebody who doesn't eat meat nowadays. So again, it's not such a big deal anymore because we're not talking about dioraisas. It's not a Torah obligation. There's no temple. We can't offer up the Korban Pesach. Unfortunately, Mitzvah Hashem, the Mashiach will come, and that will take care of that. And what's going to happen, I don't know. There's an interesting thing. Rav Avram Yitzhak Kook is of the opinion that when the Mashiach comes, we'll stop eating animals. Mm-hmm. And the only korbanot that will be offered up will be korbanot that are meal offerings, as opposed to animal offerings.
Only mincha offerings?
Mincha offerings.
Why?
And, Korban Toilah. He says, first of all, there won't be a korban chatas. There won't be a sin offering because when the Mashiach comes, we won't be sinning. He looks pretty upset about that. on Leil Seder, you can't eat roast meat. Right? That we shouldn't make the mistake of thinking that we're eating the Korban Pesach. So on Leil Seder, even though we eat meat on Leil Seder, it shouldn't be roasted. It can be baked, it can be boiled, but it just shouldn't be roast. Right? Regardless of what meat it is, doesn't matter whether it's chicken or whether it's lamb or beef. It makes no difference.
You couldn't eat the meat of the korban.
Just that nobody should make the mistake of thinking that what we're eating is the Korban Pesach.
Yeah.
Right. We can't eat the Korban Pesach until the Mashiach, until the Beis Hamikdash is built. So Mitzvah Hashem, right? We'll experience. There's still time to experience it this year, right? If Moshe Mordechai would just start davening properly, that's all.
Why is not bringing the Korban Pesach punishable by kares? There's only two aseh that are punishable by kares.
Yeah, this is fascinating. First of all, what is kares? Karet. So we spoke about this the other week, didn't we? It's that there are basically three different categories of karet. We spoke about this the other day. Kares comes in three different categories. The first category of kares is somebody who dies without children. The second category of kares is somebody who dies very young. Very young is before the age of 60. And the third category of kares, which is something which is apparently that's something which is absolutely awful, is a complete and absolute detachment of the soul after death, which means that here in the physical world, the person can be married and he can have children and he can live a long life, live to be 120, but when he leaves the world, his soul becomes completely and absolutely detached from everything. In a state, doesn't go into Olam Haba, it doesn't go into Gehenna, it doesn't suffer, but it's in a complete and absolute state of nothingness, which is apparently, this is for the soul, is the worst possible thing that could possibly be.
Will they still get resurrected?
Sorry?
Will they still get resurrected?
No.
This person?
No,
Not eligible?
it's just in a state of limbo. I don't know.
Like
right?
space and just space?
Huh?
In space?
Something like that, some kind of spiritual dimension of space, whatever it means, I don't know, right? But the soul is aware of where it is and what's going on, and the soul is in nothing can be done. It's apparently it's something absolutely terrible.
And it can never get out.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to.
Why would somebody that can have children get kares?
No, it's not an Indian. I know kares. Other way round. One of the manifestations of kares is a person not having children. That does not mean that somebody who doesn't have children is being punished with kares. It's two different things, right? Somebody who's not having children, either it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this person has been judged and has been found guilty of a karet, some kind of karet punishment, or it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's a different reason why these people are not having children. Don't make the mistake. Again, it's the same with dying early as well. People who die before the age of 60 are not necessarily people who are being punished with karet, but that's one of the punishments that karet has. The kares is normally only for negative mitzvahs, right? People who transgress negative mitzvahs, not all of them. Again, there's a list. A lot of them are to do with arayas, with forbidden relationships.
34 losasa that get you kares and 2 positive ones.
And there are 2 positive mitzvahs that a person doesn't do them, then the person gets kares. One is bris milah, which is circumcision, and the other one is korban Pesach, bringing the korban, the Pesach offering to the temple. So the Mefarshim, of course, a lot of literature has been written about these two different things. The thing that connects them together is actually something very fascinating. The Brit Milah is your individual connection to God. Right? Every Jewish male at the age of 8 days old is supposed to have a bris milah. Right? That bris milah is called an ot. It's a sign between ourselves and God. Right? And if a person doesn't have a bris milah when he's 8 days old, so the obligation now rests on the first opportunity. Let's say, for example, let's deal with a simpler case where the child is not well enough to have a bris milah at 8 days old. So the minute the child is well enough, the bris milah is done. Right? So very often when children are born, they are yellow, right? They have jaundice. And if the number is too high, so you've got to wait for the bilirubin to come down. And once it comes down to a low enough level, then the bris milah will be done. And it could be on the 9th day, it could be on the 12th day. You just got to wait, right? And when it comes down, the minute it's low enough, bris milah takes place. If a person wasn't given a bris milah at all, for whatever the reason, right, his parents never gave him a bris milah, so the Lauffer is that it's incumbent upon the Beis Din of the city to take care of it. If they don't take care of it, then when the child turns 13, it becomes his obligation to take care of it. Most 13-year-old children are not aware of the fact. If they haven't had a bris milah, it means they presumably haven't been brought up with a very Jewish identity. But the minute they become old enough, the minute they become aware enough, so they should really be getting a bris milah. There are interesting halachic dimensions and legal dimensions. A child who's under the age of 18, who wants to have a bris milah, he's found out that he's Jewish, he wants to have a bris milah, but his parents don't want him to have one. So that child would have to wait until he's 18 to be able to have a bris milah done, because up until then he's in his parents' jurisdiction legally, and it would be illegal to do a bris milah on the child, even though halachically it would be the correct thing to do. But whatever, I mean that's why it's a lot more complicated than most other legal systems. Most other legal systems is just following one thing. But if you're out of Israel, let's say you're in the States, a child under the age of 18 is a minor, and he's under his parents' jurisdiction. If his parents don't want him to have a bris milah, then he can't have a bris milah. It's illegal to give him one, right? And the child would have to wait until he's 18. Your bris milah is your sign of your personal relationship with God. The Korban Pesach, the Pesach offering, is our national sign of belonging to God. There's a fascinating Rashi. Rashi goes out of his way in the Chumash, where the Chumash says that when a convert converts, so he takes upon himself all of the mitzvahs, right? And Rashi goes out of his way to explain that when a convert converts, he does not bring a Korban Pesach to the temple, but he waits until Pesach time and brings it together with everybody else. Right? Now, it's an interesting insight, because obviously, according to logic, the minute somebody converts, they've now become a part of the Jewish nation. If they become a part of the Jewish nation, they need to bring their Korban Pesach to be included. And Rashi is just saying, it's true, that really is the obligation, but what's the problem? Korban Pesach can only be brought on Seder night, that's it, right? And Seder night is a time which has been set aside by God as being the 15th of Nisan, and that's why a convert who converts, let's say he converts the day after Pesach, he's going to have to wait a whole year to be able to bring his Korban Pesach together with everybody else and have his sense of national identity. So it's interesting that Kores, which represents cutting off, right, being cut off from something, and each one of those three categories that we spoke about are all a form of being cut off. So someone who doesn't have children, or someone who dies early, or the worst of all, the soul being cut off. But they're all, I think that kores in English is translated as excision. Yeah. Right? Excision means that that's it, you're not a part of something anymore. So it's fascinating that the only two mitzvahs that are positive mitzvahs which carry the punishment of kores are the two mitzvahs to do with our belonging. Connecting. Bris milah is connecting in an individual fashion, and Korban Pesach is connecting in a national fashion.
After we get the temple, are all of our converts going to have to bring sacrifices to be considered part of the Jewish people?
No, I don't think so.
Or will they still count as Jews?
Yeah, for sure. Anybody who converts according to Jewish law is considered to be 100% Jewish. Which means that when the Emetz Hashem, when the Mashiach comes and a temple is going to be built, they're going to be as much a part of the Jewish nation as everyone else is.
Okay, so they're not going to have to bring an extra carbon to...
No, I don't think so.
So when it says that the convert has to bring a carbon to complete his conversion, that's the carbon Pesach.
It's talking about the time of the temple,
Right.
when a convert wanted to convert, so they would be able to bring a korban. That was the end of the process, right? After they'd been to the mikveh and after they made the bracha, and after, if it was a man, after they had a bris milah, they would then bring a korban to the temple, which is now like joining into the temple service, but it's not a korban Pesach. Korban Pesach is going to be brought only at Pesach time. The beauty of Pesach, if you want to describe Pesach in one word, so really, I think the description of Pesach, most people would say freedom, but I think Pesach, in one word, is nationhood. Right? We become a nation. God becomes our ruler. We become an a nation. It's interesting that the first person to call the Jewish people an is Paro.
Oh, yes.
He sees what we don't see, right? He sees us as an He sees us already as having become something which is a cohesive unit. And nationhood is all about belonging. That's the most incredible thing. He says there's one thing that doesn't change from the beginning of Seder night until the end. We're slaves. We start off as being slaves to Paro, and then during the Seder we end up being slaves to Hashem. Avdei Hashem. That's what we call ourselves, slaves of Hashem.